everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is MTG Ghoul Dude. Today we're going to be continuing our Digging Up the Past series with Eldritch Moon. Eldritch Moon was my second block that I was into whenever I first started playing Magic. It was the 71st Magic the Gathering expansion and the second in the Shadows over Innistrad block. It was released on July 22nd of 2016 and is a small expansion. The expansion symbol of the set is a stylized silhouette of Emrakul, but there's also been like some theories thrown around that it has the resemblance to Liliana's headdress. The set is peculiar in its distribution of colors due to a green bias in the multicolored rares, and emerge and meld being colorless cards with color identity, like the angels and all the werewolves and stuff like that. So let's go on ahead and get into it. So starting us off, we have Ingenious Skaab. Skaab? Don't know. However you say it, it's correct. It's for 2 and a blue, it's a 2/3, which is actually really good for blue. Zombie horror with prowess, that's even better. And then for a blue, you can give it +1, -1 until end of turn, which basically kind of like evens its power and toughness out for the first one. Well, actually, it flips it. Either way, seems pretty decent, in a more of a budget build if you're looking for like your 3 drops. Laboratory Brute for 3 and a blue, it's a zombie horror with 3/3. Whenever it enters the battlefield, put the top 4 cards of your library into your graveyard. These specific cards, and I love like trying to find a commander they would be better in. These are one of the cards where it's like you want to play it in the Sidisi Brute Tyrant. It's pretty good. It's not, great. If you're running, like I said, more on a budget, and some of these are probably the best cards you'll have in your deck because they do so much. Advanced Stitchwing for 3 and 2 blue. It's a 3/4 zombie horror. And a lot of these are zombie horrors because in Eldritch Moon they were mixed with either Eldrazi or they were like super strong for zombies. But it has flying, and for 2 and a blue, you discard 2 cards, return Advanced Stitchwing from your graveyard to the battlefield. And now we get into some of our black cards. Gavany Unhallowed for 3 and a black. It's a zombie with 2 power and 4 toughness. Whenever another creature you control dies, put a counter on him. That could be pretty good, especially if you're running like a fling effect where when you sack it, it deals damage equal to its power toughness or its power. Wailing Ghoul for 1 and a black. It's a 1/3 for 2. That's actually pretty strong. And it enters the battlefield, put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard, which they've now errata to mill 2. So don't worry, sweet brother, help is on the way. That's actually pretty cool. Thraben Foulbloods. If you didn't know, there was another card in Innistrad that we didn't cover because they're not zombies. But it's these 2 dogs living in the Lap of Luxury. They're white cards. I can't remember the name of them. But for 2 and a black, you get a 3/2 Zombie Hound. And it has Delirium in this set. So Thraben Foulbloods gets +1/+1 and has Menace along with as long as there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, which is pretty cool. Haunted Dead for 3 and a black. It's a 2/2 zombie, but when it enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 spirit creature token with flying onto the battlefield. So here's my thing, and let me finish the card first. For 1 and a black, you discard 2 cards, return it from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So here's my thing. Here we have a zombie body, and when he spawns, when you bring it onto the battlefield, it creates its spirit. So this is one of the few times where they like kind of put together the undead and the dead, but also the spirit. Because the last time we seen something that resembled this was the zombie spirit that, at the beginning of your upkeep, you draw X cards and lose X life, where X is the amount of spirit zombies you control. Which I think it was called Greyborn Muse. Don't correct me on that. Don't at me. But I think that is what it's called. I think it was called Greyborn Muse. Liliana's Elite for 2 and a black. It's a 1/1, but it gets +1/+1 for each card in your graveyard. Creature card. But yeah, this was a really heavy hitter for me in Eldritch Moon Shadows of our Innistrad block standard. Because I had 2 decks there and then. I had Delirium, green-black Delirium, and also had blue-black Zombies. Because it was a rager back then. Crypt Breaker. This is probably one of the most expensive cards in the set when it comes to zombies. For a black, you get a 1/1 zombie, and it has the ability for 1 and a black. You can tap it, discard a card, put a zombie creature token onto the battlefield. This one does not say tapped. Tap because what you want to do is you want to have multiple zombies, and when you need to spawn a zombie to use the second ability, it's untapped. Its second ability says tap 3 untapped zombies you control. You draw a card and you lose a life. That's actually super nice, especially in the more competitive formats like Modern, where you can, okay, well, they didn't swing with their army, so let me tap mine down so I can draw some cards to find responses. New Scrap Mob for 4 and 2 black. It's a 0/0, but it enters the battlefield with 5 +1/+1 counters on it. There are some times when I see this creature and I was like, ugh, it's so overcosted, but the ability is so good, especially if you can find a way to keep it with a 1/1, like say it's a Lord of the Accurses on the battlefield or something. Some kind of Lord effect to keep it alive. Then it's pretty good. But its second ability says, whenever a player casts a spell, remove a +1/+1 counter from New Scrap Mob. If you do, put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield. So if you also have a way to proliferate with spells to where you can consistently add more counters to this or something along those lines, you could keep this indefinitely and you could just keep spawning zombies every time somebody casts a spell. And now we get into our zombie affiliate cards. So first we have Soul Separator for 3 colorless mana. It's an artifact that you can pay 5, tap it, and sacrifice it. Exile target creature card from your graveyard. Put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of that card, except it's a 1/1. It's a spirit in addition to its other types, and it has flying. Put a black zombie creature token onto the battlefield with power equal to that card's power, and toughness equal to that card's toughness. So you basically pay 5, sack a creature. Well, now you exile it from your graveyard, and you get the soul of the creature, the abilities of it on a 1/1, and you get the power toughness of it on another zombie body. Liliana, the Last Hope. Ooh, this was a card back in the day. It's still a good card, but it wasn't. It was one of the cards. So for 1 and 2 black, you get a Planeswalker Liliana that starts out with 3 loyalty. Her +1 is up to 1 target creature gets -2/-1 till your end of turn, till your next turn. So it kind of nerfs an attacker that you know is coming. Her -2 is you put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. You may return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. And this is the bonkers one. It's a -7. You get an emblem with, at the beginning of your end step, you put X 2/2 black zombie creature tokens onto the battlefield, where X is 2 plus the number of zombies you control. So if you got 4 zombies, you get 6 zombies. The next turn, if those live, you'll have 10, so then you'll get 12 zombies. I was playing in a match a long time ago, and he was somehow running green, red, land destruction in standard. It was a thing. Believe me, it was rough for most of the people at the LGS. And this was the shop owner that played it. It was great. He was such a good. He's such a good guy. But when he played against me in one of the later rounds, I was able to get I was able to get Liliana's ult off, and I was able to stabilize with 0 lands on the battlefield. He could not out aggro me because I would constantly keep blocking his creatures, but not sacrificing enough to where I couldn't hold myself down. So it eventually just came to a war of attrition where I ended up having more creatures than he did, and he lost. Graft Harvest. From 1 black, it's an enchantment. Zombies you control have menace. It's overlooked a lot of times whenever you can give your zombies evasion, especially if you can find a way to just get them to push through. For 3 and a black, exile a creature card from your graveyard, put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield. I've actually used that ability a couple times when it's like a non-zombie heavy deck or like zombies I know I won't bring back. I will definitely exile them to make a token. Oath of Liliana. For 2 and a black, it's a legendary enchantment. When Oath of Liliana enters the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices a creature. At the beginning of the end step, if a planeswalker enters the battlefield under your control this turn, put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield. This is when they started caring about planeswalkers, but they didn't care about specific planeswalkers. So it didn't say if you had a Liliana enter the battlefield, you get a 2/2. No, it just said if you had a planeswalker. Cemetery Recruitment. For 1 and a black, it's a sorcery. Return target card from your graveyard to your hand. If it's a zombie, you can draw a card. Dark Salvation. This was one of my key removal spells back in my day of holding the shop down as the zombie guy. So for XX black, it's a sorcery. Dark Salvation. Wonderful name. Target player puts X 2/2 black zombie creature tokens onto the battlefield. Then up to 1 target creature gets -1/-1 until the end of turn for each zombie that player controls. So I actually ended up having a situation where an opponent wanted to interact with the spell before it completely resolved, because it meant that by the time it completely resolved, he would not have a favorable board state to win against me. Because if you notice in the text, it says target player puts X 2/2 black zombie creature tokens onto the battlefield, comma, then up to 1 target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn for each zombie that player controls. It does not pause anywhere. It's just a comma. There is no stop in the spell or anything as it resolves. It's one whole thing, and it has to resolve all at once. So he ended up losing that game because I took out a key creature and I was able to hoard my way through. Rise from the Grave. For 4 and a black, it's a sorcery. Put target creature card from a graveyard, onto the battlefield under your control. That creature is a black zombie in addition to its other types. Now, if you're not above raiding somebody else's graveyard, which I know I'm not even guilty of it. I don't have a guilty conscience when it comes to that. It's a creature. It can be mine too. Our creature. But yeah, this could actually boost up your zombie count. And if they have black in them, it's even better because yeah, Grey Merchant of Asphodel, stuff like that cares about black pips or just zombies in general. There you go. Gisa and Giraffe. For 2, a blue and a black. It's a legendary creature, human wizard. That's 4/4. When it enters the battlefield, put the top 4 cards of your library into your graveyard. For a long time, this was probably one of the best zombie commanders, besides Grimgrin and stuff like that, until a couple later sets where we were introduced to the Scarab God. But it also says during each of your turns, you may cast a zombie creature card from your graveyard. So you only get to cast 1. You have to use the rest of your reanimation effects for the rest of them. But it's okay. But that's going to be it today. And I really appreciate you guys. Really appreciate all the likes, the comments, the thumbs up, everything. And if you're subscribed, thank you so much. If you're not subscribed, please think about subscribing. It does help with the algorithms to help get my stuff out there a little bit. Even though zombies are a niche, it is what it is. I'm not scared to try and reach out. But that's going to be it for today, guys. I really appreciate y'all. Once again, I can't say it enough. And I will see you guys next time in the graveyard.